Hello, my moon and stars. Find your seats, grab a snack, and prepare for the thriller of your life. Tonight's play will feature a wonderful selection of characters, fulfilling a random generator's wildest dreams. Imagine this, stargazers, a murder, mystery, musical set in an intergalactic 1950s highway diner. If that intrigues you, kick back, relax, and enjoy the show. For this video, I wanted to try and walk you guys through my character design choices to show how I come up with these designs in the first place. Usually, I slap a speed paint on and I talk about the process, but I'm not really showing you the research or the time put behind these designs. I first got the idea for the video when I was reorganizing my aesthetics board on Pinterest, and I just wanted to do something with the different aesthetics I was sorting them into. I had ocean, bright nature, dark nature, dreams, neon, spooky, but just making characters based on aesthetics themselves wasn't enough of a prompt for me, so I started looking for interesting animals to pair them with. At mostly random choice, I picked a tiger, a Highland cow, a deer, a Clydesdale horse, a raccoon, and a pigeon. Finally, this is where I turned to random generators. I found a genre generator and got murder mystery, and then went to a setting generator and got 1950s. Considering the items I had so far, aesthetics, animals, murder mystery, 1950s, I went off the deep end a little bit, and I decided that wasn't enough. Final general prompt for my characters was, stick with me now, murder mystery musical set in a sci-fi intergalactic 1950s highway diner. That's where this begins. I matched up the animals and the aesthetics with the ones that seemed the most fun and got to work. When I make characters, I like to try and draw them all together in a lineup to push and pull their silhouettes and make sure I don't make them all look the same. I generally look for body types and heights as my main two factors for making an interesting looking cast. I thought it would be funny if the love interest was shorter than our main character, for the horse character to be big and strong, for the pigeon character to be massively tall. The initial Highland cow character was a little vague, and the raccoon character I wanted to make plus size because he was the detective and I wanted to put him in a nice-ass suit. Our main character, the ocean tiger, is a standard waitress. I downloaded about 2 photos per aesthetic to keep my options limited, and I chose this beautiful wave and these tiles. Her loose braids are inspired by the big wave, and the braids looking like hearts was inspired by the tiles themselves. Looking at tigers, they've got a bit of a gradient, so I made her get lighter at the limbs. Originally, her stripes were a dark blue, but in order to push the sci-fi angle, I changed it to a glowing white. When I think of sci-fi, I think of dark backgrounds and glowing lines, so you'll see a lot of that. Her outfit was a mix of these photos, but I poofed her skirt out more and shifted the buttons to clasp at the side like a double-breasted blazer with puffed sleeves. I wanted to make her look a bit more mid-sized, so I think the puffed sleeves and the skirt really helped with that. I like to think of her as a very upbeat and sweet person, always willing to lend a hand and an extremely hard worker. She often talks to her regular customers and keeps the whole diner feeling positive. Next is our best friend character, the neon Clydesdale horse waitress. I wanted her to be strong-bodied with thick limbs like the horse. I gave her a loose hairstyle that is swept to the side like a horse's mane, and I gave her some chunky leg warmers to mimic the fur that Clydesdales have. I wish I made them a bit chunkier to really push that angle, but that's a note for another time. I struggled a bit with her color palette as it was all looking very similar and not really making her stand out against the others until I saw a spotted horse and decided to make her a rainbow gradient with spots to help the shift of the colors. It was kind of hard because I didn't really go with the colors that were from the photos I took, but that's why they're only for inspiration. I don't necessarily have to go with what the photos look like. And that, I think, was the most important thing to remember with this whole thing. I'm genuinely a bit super pleased with myself on how unique I pushed her face, and I also purposefully didn't give her eyebrows. I don't know how to best explain it, but I tried my best to give her a horse face, and most of that was put into just giving her really pronounced cheekbones, which I really think pushed that angle, pushed the horse face. I'm proud of that. She's a no-nonsense gal who isn't afraid to dump orange juice on rude customers and stand up for her coworkers. Moving forward, we have our Dreamscape surrealism deer reppin' some T-boy swag. Because of the colors and the original sketch, he was going to have a gradient where the white would normally be on some deer, but because of the clothes I decided to go with, you can't really see it. At this point, being the third character I designed, I wanted to heavily lean into the sci-fi aspect of this theme, so I swapped his legs out for cybernetic ones. This allowed me to really tap into the Tron aesthetic I was holding off to the side of my canvas. I gave him some hip cutouts as well, just so that he looks more cool. Futuristic clothing often has some unique cuts, but I really just kind of relied on my imagination for this one. I imagine him being a student getting his master's degree, and he often comes by the diner to study. When the service is slow, our tiger gal will often sit down with him and help him study by quizzing him on his note cards. Quick break from the speed paint, stargazers, but just in case you missed it last video, I opened up a new Patreon tier. For $10 a month, I'll draw a sketch of any character of your choice. It'll be experimental, every month will most likely look very different, but the style of each batch should be similar. For $5 a month, you get early access to my videos. I usually like to upload them to Patreon about an hour or more before they load to public. For $3 a month, you get access to whips and illustrations that will never see the light of day, or before they get posted to public, including art for videos. And for $1 a month, you get my unending love and your name at the end of my videos. Our next character was the dark academia detective Raccoon. Because I was thinking of 1950s noir detectives, I chose the raccoon for the detective because of the eye shading. In terms of the play, he would come later because he's tracking the killer down and is eventually led to our main diner. I took a lot of inspiration from just this set of photos to get our noir vibe. Originally, he was more cool-toned, but I chose a candle as the inspiration for the colors in his hair, and decided that slightly shifting his fur colors to a warmer tone would make it all fit together. The patterns of his skin come from a picture of a raccoon. Their arms are lighter, but their hands aren't, so I tried to mimic that. And it ended up giving him sort of like a vitiligo look, which I really love. I also wanted him to be more of a hulking figure, someone who's very confident and serious, so that's why I made him big. I love him, and so many people I showed him to won't stop calling him sexy, and you know what? They're right. I was iffy about including the narrator because there wasn't really a trope I could lean on for a role in this stage production. At first, she was a Highland cow, and her aesthetic folder was dark nature, but I'll be so honest, I wasn't getting any ideas how to go forward with that. So, I bit the bullet and I changed her animal to a Picasso bug. Looking more into 1950s kind of aesthetics, I decided to lean the narrator towards looking like a radio host, and eventually came up with the idea that the reason the narrator looks like a radio host is because the play intends for the audience to technically only learn about the events of the play after they've happened, listening to the radio. For the buggy nature, my partner suggested taking inspiration from these porcelain corsets and hand gloves, because without all the glam of it, they can kind of look like the plates of a bug shell. I don't remember where I got the inspiration for her jacket from, but the closest I've got is this picture. For her stature and the air about her, I kept these old 1950 fashion sketches to the side to get ideas for how she presents herself in terms of posing. The colors, of course, came completely from the bug. Personally, I'd like to think her hair actually looks like this, and the long hair is just a wig. Lastly, we have our main event, our killer. And I chose a pigeon for him because obviously, why wouldn't I? And I was torn between going towards a classic greaser or once again leaning more into the sci-fi aspect. I was trying my best to weave in 1950s or sci-fi into each character, and because the radio host or the narrator was more 1950s, I decided to lean more into sci-fi for him. I had a large group of pictures to give me inspiration, and let me tell you, this was the hardest one for me. I was holding out on giving any of my characters a helmet or an electronic face because I really specifically wanted to save it for him. I gave him a crowbar because it's funny. And although my inspiration pictures for the aesthetic I chose for him, which was spooky, didn't really come into play at all for his design, at the end of the day, as long as he looks menacing, I'm fine. Because really, I chose the aesthetics, but I don't necessarily have to stick with them. Closest I really got was, instead of a chain anywhere, I gave him a leg harness. And as an Easter egg, the sign on his cyber face is actually a distorted picture of a pigeon. You're welcome. After that, to make him look more like a killer, I drenched him in some blue blood because sci-fi means blood is different. At least for me. And here's our finished designs, our lineup. I'm really happy with how they all came out, and I can't really pick a favorite. It's the ocean tiger. But that's not all I wanted to show you. This entire video was one big exploration into character design, but I overthink so much, and I wanted to show you how I intend for this little universe of characters to be played out. I swear to God, I could not stop thinking about it. So imagine with me. The play is normal for the first act, establishing the scene and some of the characters. Our love interest and our main character are hopelessly flirting over his 4th cup of coffee. The best friend throws a rude customer out and contemplates spitting into the scrambled eggs of another rude customer. The love interest's school rival is grabbing a bite to eat and definitely not jealous over our main character. The narrator is cracking jokes with the audience, and all is well until Act 2. Act 2 is where we introduce our murder victim. The lights cut out in the diner, and when everything is turned back on, the manager is found in the bathroom, and there is no clear culprit as to who is responsible. Before they're able to call the space police, a detective enters the diner. They approach the detective, who investigates the scene, and then they lock the diner down. The detective flies off the handle with accusations of murder, suspicious alibis, and talk of a highway hitman, a suspect the police have been chasing for months. Faults lie in everyone at the diner, even the narrator. They chase each other around the diner, make pacts, point fingers. The detective tries to calm everyone down afterwards, but to no avail. In Act 3, just as tension rises, a clue emerges. The love interest has cracked the case wide open with a singular clue that he was able to catch. And it all spells out the downfall for the highway hitman. They go back through the order of the events, the timing, where everyone was, until it becomes clear. The manager wasn't the intended target. It was the love interest. And the killer was none other than the rival. Cue music. Thank you so much, Stargazers. This video was a huge passion project, and I put so much effort into it. I really hope you enjoyed watching. As always, I have nothing else to say. Bye-bye!